Whew. We made it, guys. It is opening day. Baseball 2021. Fun stuff here. So we don't have a whole lot of time to break down this slate, but I wanted to try to do a quick little rundown of the MLB-DFS DraftKings slate. Shout out to the Cincinnati Reds. They're about to start here in a couple hours, but the main slate starts a little after 2 o'clock Eastern, so we don't have a whole lot of time to dig into this, and it's going to be really raw, unfiltered type of stream because, I candidly just am putting together lineups as we speak. I'm kind of behind the 8 ball here. So I'm going to do a quick little rundown before I get started, and then that way you guys can kind of understand. I'll do this more at a later stream to kind of break things down a bit more and explain the process and how I'm doing things and what I'm looking at to find these things and why I'm picking certain players, et cetera, et cetera. You'll start to kind of understand that as we go through this. But I just wanted to, briefly break down how I typically handle these MLB slates. And, you kind of have to pick and choose the right stats and the right websites. But if you do that and you're able to choose the right ones, you can really break it down, but it does take a lot of work. So as long as you're willing to put in the work and you have the time to do so, you can actually be really successful in MLB because you can really gain an advantage on some of the field with some of your contrarian picks. And you can kind of just, leapfrog all these other guys. So that being said, I'm mostly using Fangraphs and Baseball Savant as my 2 sources. Now, Baseball Savant, I haven't gotten as familiar with as I am with Fangraphs, but I know it actually more often than not has better tools to use and more predictive stats. So I'm going to try to be digging into that a bit more this season, but for the time being, I have both of them up. What I haven't quite figured out yet on Baseball Savant is I know some of the data that I'm pulling is from 2020 season only, and I'm not a huge fan of that just given the fact that it was such a shortened season and some sample sizes don't really play out. And, I'd like to have the 2019 and 2020 data together to be able to make real good conclusions and be able to kind of have an advantage that way. But that being said, we kind of just take what we can get, and it does. Baseball Savant still has really good information from 2020, and you can kind of filter it from 2019 separately, but it just takes more time. It is what it is. I am going to use a little bit of both sites and kind of just come with a cumulative breakdown of this slate. So I'll start by saying this. This slate sucks. This opening day slate is not fun. I just don't like it. I don't know how else to put it, but hola, Angel. Thank you for joining me. I can't get away from some of the chalky picks. A lot of these picks are going to be very popular across the board, and it's kind of difficult to separate yourself from the pack when you're just picking all the popular picks, especially in a case like this where you have a game that is slated to be in Coors Field, tends to flock a lot of ownership. We have that, and we also have one of the best offenses in the league in the Dodgers going to Coors Field, so it makes it even more popular. So it's just a combination of a few things. Secondly, the slate just doesn't have great weather. Yeah, Caleb saying he's riding with me under 7.5 for the Cincy St. Louis game, which I sent in the chat. Yeah, I'm expecting that to kind of be a low-scoring affair here. Obviously, I hope the Reds come out on top, but either way, good pitching matchup there. St. Louis and Cincinnati with Flaherty and Castillo going. Both bullpens have some talent. Neither offense is super stout yet. Kind of a few unknown pieces there. So I do kind of like a few plays from this game, but mostly I'm in on on the pitching side of things, Caleb. But what I was saying is, as far as the popularity of the slate, there's just too many guys that are going to be from too few games, and it's going to kind of stick out like a sore thumb here. You'll kind of notice some of the picks here are all from similar games. In DFS, one thing you have to know if you don't already, you have to stack big time. Stacking is important in football, as me and my buddy Joe Andraccio break down on a weekly basis, but it's also super important in baseball because you need stacks that are correlated. So you need guys that are hitting 1, 2, 3 in the lineup. Why that's important is because if you have 1, 2, 3 in the lineup, say the first guy gets a double, gets you some points, second guy walks, gets on base, then the third guy hits a 3-run homer, then you get points for all 3 of those guys. So you're really loading up on the points there. That's why it's important on that end to, be able to stack these teams, and game stacks are very important in baseball. So you don't always have to go 1, 2, 3. You don't always have to go at the top of the lineup, guys. It's actually pretty contrarian sometimes, and a nice way to pivot to go like 6, 7, 8 or something to that effect. Now, normally we're wanting to get the guys at the top of the lineup just because they're the ones that are going to have more at-bats, more opportunities. If it is a high-scoring game, you're kind of putting yourself in a position to win because those guys are coming up to the plate more and able to produce, fantasy stats and points for you on a consistent basis. So that's why you like those guys there at the top of the lineup. But you can't always get the guys at the top of the lineup because they're just too expensive and you can't quite fit them in. So that being said, what I think is probably the best way to do this right now is, I don't know that I have enough time to kind of break down what kind of stats I'm looking for, but it's not your average. It's not your home run. It's not your, on base percentage per se that I'm looking for. I'm really looking at advanced stats from a hitting perspective. It's stats like hard hit rate, barrels, exit velocity. Those are the fly ball percentage, because you want guys that can elevate the ball. You don't want guys having hard hit rate but hit a bunch of ground balls, because it won't really give you a whole lot of fantasy points. So you want those guys that are going to be able to drive in doubles, triples, home runs, get on base and walk and score runs. Those are the types of producers that you really want from a DFS perspective to kind of build a successful lineup. So that being said, I'm kind of going to just go down my list here initially on some guys that I like, and then I'm gonna try to share my screen here and just kind of do an off the cuff edition of building a lineup, I guess. So I'm going to, while I have the moment here, I'm just gonna kind of fill in some of the pieces just to have a lineup in place. That way, if I want to update it, I can certainly do that. I only have a couple more pieces left. Bada boom, bada bing. Okay. What do we have here? All right. Let's just hit enter so I actually can get into this contest. That's always the challenge of these things, is sometimes when you get too late into this thing, you don't have enough time to submit multiple lineups. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to hit enter 3 times just to get in. I'm picking a $5 entry, multi-entry type lineup. I'm going to try to submit 3 lineups here before close. and then we can kind of go from there. So just a kind of a quick breakdown here on guys that I'm liking today. From the starting pitching perspective, again, I don't like this slate from a hitter's perspective at all. There's just too much weather in play, which can hinder scoring performances. There's too many good pitchers on the mound, which can limit scoring. So it's just one of those slates that there's not a whole lot of high-scoring offenses in play. So you might have to spend up a little bit at starting pitching. On DraftKings, you have to choose 2 starting pitchers. So the guys that I think are in play today are Tyler Glasnow is one of my favorites over on DraftKings. He is, what is he? He is 8,800, so it's not too bad of a price, honestly. And he's going up against the Marlins team that is not super stout on offense. But the other thing is Glasnow has a really high ceiling. He could strike out 15 guys in a game, and that's the type of upside that we're looking for. Not to mention this spring, he has actually added another pitch, that slider, which really could take his game to the next level because he's really a 2-pitch pitcher, and that would add a third pitch, could be good for his tunneling and being able to mix his pitches, and could be tougher for the offenses, obviously. So I have Glasnow as probably my number 1 guy. I think I like Luis Castillo with the Reds second. He's over at 9,200, a bit more expensive, but I still like him. I'm an hour from the stadium, essentially. It's snowing here. It was like 60 degrees yesterday, and now it's snowing. So it's going to be cold at Great American Ballpark. The wind is going to be blowing out, which doesn't help, and it's a small ballpark, pretty favorable ballpark to hit in. But, with the cold weather, it's a safe bet to kind of bet on these pitchers rather than the hitters. So I like Luis Castillo. I like it's kind of hard not to like Kyle Hendricks. He doesn't have a super strong high upside as far as strikeouts are concerned, but he does face a really weak lineup in Pittsburgh, and they're at home, and it's at Wrigley, and I believe the wind's blowing in. So that's a pretty good, safe way to go as well. Probably more so a cash game guy than a tournament guy. And then lastly, I will mention Sandy Alcantara. Mentioned him on my first episode with in my first episode of the Longball Lounge with the guest. We kind of broke it down, and Alcantara just has a really good chance of breaking out this year, I believe. So he's not going to get much cheaper than this on opening day, especially if he has this breakout that we're expecting. His price is only going to go up from here. Right now, he's at 6,500 over on DraftKings, so I like him on the cheap end. It'll help you get some more expensive bats. So on the catcher side of things, we're really, really hurting here on the catching side of things. I like Sal Perez. He's batting 4th against Kyle Gibson, but he's 5,200, and I hate paying that much for a catcher. Catcher is just the most vulnerable position on a night in and night out basis. I like to kind of spend down with him. Other guys I guess I would like are Willie Contreras. They're at 5,000. Again, probably too expensive for my blood. Austin Barnes is the personal catcher for Clayton Kershaw, so he's going to be in Coors Field at 3,800. I like him there. He's batting 8th. Then the other guy I wanted to kind of move down towards the very bottom is Victor Carantini. Let me just check to make sure that he is actually in the lineup. I haven't seen that lineup come down for San Diego yet, so I want to make sure that I'm not giving any. Okay, yeah, so he's batting 8th as well against Madison Bumgarner. We picked on him almost all year last year. Worked out really well. I think he could be due for a little bit of a bounce back, but, it is what it is. We'll see what, happens. He's kind of had a couple ticks up on his velocity this spring training, which could help him, but I still don't think he's a great pitcher by any means. So that being said, let's move on to first base. I like Rhys Hoskins against Max Fried. He's kind of on my lower end. He just got so much power upside in that lefty-righty matchup. I think Fried could be susceptible to some long balls there, but he doesn't give up a whole lot of hard contact, so it's kind of hard to expect that from Hoskins. I do like Max Muncy. I think he's probably the top first baseman on the slate. He's at 5,200. Then I like Carlos Santana is much cheaper there. And again, he's against Kyle Gibson. He is down at 3,600. And then probably CJ Cron in that same game at Coors Field. I know he's facing against Kershaw, but it is a lefty-righty matchup. It is Coors Field, and Kershaw's not going to go all 9 innings. So, he has a chance to obviously get to that bullpen, which is very good as well. But, he does have almost just as good of ability as anybody else to hit the ball out of the ballpark, and especially in that stadium. So I like him on the low end just to kind of be a little contrarian. Let's move over to second base. Kind of like me, some Gavin Lux is looking like he is going to be in the lineup, and he is batting 7th. So that was always the question mark there, but he's going to be batting 7th, like him in Coors Field. Like Jorge Polanco is a little cheap option there at second base. And, he has a pretty, not a great pitching matchup, but he is facing against Woodruff, which is kind of fastball heavy. Those types of pitchers are good, but we get lucky that he is playing in the dome in Milwaukee, which the ball flies out of the ballpark sometimes when that dome is closed. So keep that in mind. I like Jorge Polanco there if you need to salary save. And then Luis Arias as well over there is 4,800 is the only problem with him, but he's leading off against Woodruff as well. Let's move over to third base. Let's Manny Machado, probably my top option on the slate. I love him. Lefty-righty matchup from, against Bumgarner. Just really like these San Diego Padres today against Bumgarner to beat up on them, especially these big boppers on the right-hand side. So love me some Machado. Love me some Eugenio Suarez, and Mike Moustakas are right around the same price if you want to save a little bit of money. I know it's a little bit frightening going up against Flaherty, but he honestly has had his velocity's been down in spring training. And so maybe he isn't built all the way up yet. And maybe we can kind of take advantage of the Reds having a decent matchup. He's really fastball, slider, pretty much, and that's it. And some of these Reds hitters actually feast on those types of pitches. I actually looked at that pretty in depth here. So I'm liking that. And then the St. Louis bullpen is okay, but it's not elite by any stretch. So I think even if Flaherty gets going, if he has to leave the game early, I think the Reds could beat up on the bullpen as well. So that's the third base. Shortstop, it's going to be really hard to get away from Tatis or Story or Corey Seager. Those three guys right there are basically locked plays over at shortstop. I really like paying up today at shortstop, but if you needed to go down again, Suarez is third base and shortstop eligible over there. That being said, let's move on to outfield. Kind of difficult to narrow this down, but I like Jock Peterson and Ian Happ in that Chicago game against Chad Kuhl. They just have so much power, and even with the wind blowing in, they could do some damage there. Will Myers is an okay play. I don't love it. Just never been a Will Myers guy, and nothing's sticking out to me so far for him. Bellinger is obviously one of the better plays on the slate. Betts as well. Andrew McCutchen down a little bit cheaper, and then a guy that could be a little sneaky, and that is Byron Buxton. Let's see where he's filtered into the lineup here. Looks like Buxton. Yeah, he's batting 6, so that's not too bad. He's got a ton of speed, so if he gets on base, he's got power and speed. So he's either going to drive the ball, he's going to strike out, or he's going to get on base and he's going to cause havoc in that offense, and he's going to be able to steal some bases, which are great fantasy point producers in DFS. That being said, let me see if we can do a real quick. I don't have a whole lot of time. Let's try to share my screen here, see if you guys can see what I'm looking at here. Okay, so let's do this. Let's hide this bad boy. All right, so I kind of just filled this initial lineup out. I don't love it. But I'm going to go with Glasnow and Alcantara at pitcher. I went down to Carantini at catcher. First base, let's leave that open. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do that. Let's leave Gavin Lux in at second base. Let's leave Machado in at third. Let's get out of Polanco at short just because I kind of want to get a more expensive bat there. And I just said I didn't love Myers. So, okay. So here we are. I hope you guys can see this. If you can't for whatever reason, let me know. In fact, I can probably just check on my end anyways to make sure that you do see it. Let me just confirm here that you guys are able to see my screen. What do we have here? Okay. So, all right. Let's do this. So we're at about 4,500 remaining per player. First base, I said it was going to be hard to get away from Muncy. Let's plug him in there. If we need to, we can go down to Santana or Crone. Shortstop. What do we want to do here? Shortstop. This is probably riveting content. You guys are loving this, but it's just so difficult to choose. I mean, in this lineup particularly, we have Machado, so maybe I just go Tatis here, stack it up with that 2-3 stack, have Muncy and Gavin Lux is 7th. Now, if Gavin Lux is 7th and Muncy is 5th, I wonder who is 6th. And I'm trying to pull this up on my phone here because I don't want to, I'm sharing my screen. Okay, Chris Taylor is 6th. All right. I wonder if we can get him in here. This used to be so much easier being able to search for certain guys. There we go. Okay, let's go to Taylor and see what okay, so he's 4,300. We have about 3,900 a piece left. Let's just do that. Let's stack him. So we got a 5, 6, 7 stack there with LA. All right, is it going to let me go down? Really plugging this Jose Cuervo over on DraftKings. Okay, so we have 3,700. Oh, okay. So now, okay. So I didn't mention this guy earlier. I love him, though. He's so cheap. Jorge Soler has power for days. 2,800 against Kyle Gibson is a travesty. He should never be that cheap against a matchup like that. So I'm going to plug him in there just to have a little bit of salary saving. And then that gives me 4,600 to plug in another outfielder. I said I liked Ian Happ against Cool. Winker against Flaherty. Yep, I kind of like that. I like McCutchen. I mentioned Buxton. Ooh, Joey Gallo is 3,600. I can kind of do a little mini stack with Soler and Gallo on the other side against Brad Keller. Let's do that. But then that leaves me 1,000 that I'm underpaying. So I wonder if I can move from Chris Taylor. This gives me not loving the options that I'm getting here. So let's stay with Taylor. Maybe I can go up from Caratini. 3,600. Man, oh man, I am just not loving much at all on this side of things. And I'm running out of time here because these games start soon. In fact, I believe I only have a couple more minutes left here. And then, yeah, so 2:10. All right, so I have a few minutes. Gosh, I don't like leaving $1,000 on the table, but this is a really good lineup. I wonder if maybe I can go up from Alcantara. I don't love that. Of course, we're 200 away from getting Kyle Hendricks in there. Would love to do that instead of Alcantara, just because I wouldn't have to worry about the wins and everything. If I'm pitching two guys from the same game, you always worry about not getting the extra points for any wins, anything like that. Let's try that. Let's try plugging in Hendricks, and let's try. So I'm $200 in the hole here. And I wonder if I can get away from Caratini. I know he's a good option, but it is catcher. Gosh, do I want to go Tucker Barnhart? I don't really. But honestly, I like this lineup so much. It's either going to be Barnhart or Alfaro. And I have Glass now. So I guess I'll take the shot on Tucker Barnhart just to give me that lineup here. Okay. I guess I can live with this one. I'll play around with another lineup, but this is the one that we're going to choose here. So I got Glass now and Hendricks on the mound, Tucker Barnhart at catcher, Max Muncy at first, Gavin Lux at second, Manny Machado at third, Fernando Tatis at short, Chris Taylor at outfield, Jorge Soler at outfield, and then Joey Gallo at outfield. So I have a little mini stack with the Texas-Kansas City game. I have I have three guys from LA against in Coors Field, and then I have my two guys in San Diego with Tatis and Machado. So I'm kind of getting a little bit of everything that I wanted here. Now I can be a little more contrarian in another lineup, but I really like this lineup, so I'm going to hit assign and just lock this bad boy in. And then I have about 5 minutes to get these other two lineups set. So again, this isn't going to be a super long stream here. I didn't want it to be a super long stream. Maybe some other time I will be able to break it down a little more detail. I like to do a little coaching session to be able to show you guys what I'm looking at and why I like some of the guys that I like. But today we didn't have time for that. Just kind of had to list off the plays. But again, most of this information is coming from Baseball Savant or Fangraphs. So that being said, I have two more lineups to get done before 2:10 here in the next couple minutes. So I appreciate you guys tuning in with me. This was a short, brief breakdown of the DFS main slate over on DraftKings for the opening day baseball slate. So thank you guys for joining me. Again, you know who I am, Jesse Clark. You find me at jcroc@24 over on Twitter. And we finally have everything uploaded on our new YouTube page as well. So make sure you're go on YouTube and follow me. It's Fantasy Sports with Jesse Clark. I can shoot out the link to my YouTube page, but would greatly appreciate some subscribers there to get the page built. That being said, this does it for this edition of the Longball Lounge podcast / live stream for the MLB DFS slate. Good luck, everybody. Happy opening.